Branding is not your logo, your website, your business card, or any of these marketing collaterals that you use. It's not that. Marketing used to be about people wanting to buy what you had to offer, like your services, your products. It went from the company to the consumer. Now, in today's terms, it goes from the consumer to the company, meaning that it's the consumers who are determining what your brand is all about. Branding is essentially the heart and soul of who you are.
So welcome. I'm so happy that you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
And you agreed to do this interview.
Of course.
And you have no idea what I'm going to ask you.
No.
Yeah, no. It's like, why am I here? So Azadeh, the reason I invited you to be in the show is because I find you a very inspiring person, number one. And number two, I've been working with you.
Yes.
You've been my branding consultant, and you have so much to offer. And I think our audience is going to get a lot out of our conversation today.
Thank you.
So I want to start by just asking you to share with the audience what it is that you do.
Well, I could say I empower people. I make you feel like you have wings so that you can fly. So what does that mean? I run a branding company. So we primarily do branding and then roll it out into marketing. But then in the last 2 years, we've been also doing a lot of training and workshops. But primarily, it's all around branding and identity.
That is what you do.
Yeah.
And you're excellent at it.
Thank you.
So the question that I don't remember ever asking this question. How did you get into branding? Like, why branding?
Yeah, it's a story I haven't necessarily shared with a lot of people unless if you've seen me talk on stage where I have a little bit more time. But it actually goes back to my childhood. I was raised in Iran. I was born and raised in Iran at the time of the revolution. And so this is like 1978, depending on how much of that piece of history you remember. And so Iran went through change from the Shah getting kicked out and Khomeini moving in. And this completely shifted how people were viewing themselves in their society and how they were viewed by their neighbors, friends, family. Because what happened was that in the period of Shah, everyone was free. They were expressing themselves, even if not everyone agreed or they didn't follow the same religion. They either wore, the chador or not. But when Khomeini came in, their country became completely religious. So then everybody had to cover their heads, all the women, that is. And so it became this thing of you had to be a certain way outside in the society and a different way inside because that's authentically how you were. You couldn't show, you couldn't just walk outside and not wear the hijab because you might have gotten shot or you might have gone to prison. So as a kid, I was taught to have like a double identity. You are like this at home and you are like this outside. And that never felt comfortable, because you're learning to lie. You're learning to have a double face. And for good reason, right? Because it's based on protection. We don't follow that. We are this, but we can't show this outside because it's not allowed.
That must have been so hard. Was it hard or was it just the way it was?
Well, I was just a kid, so I didn't know any better. I was 1 year old or 2 years old when this whole shift was happening. But I grew up in it, right? And as a child, I always knew that this was wrong. But I didn't know why. It just internally didn't feel good.
Yeah, it didn't
but
feel right.
I grew up just meeting people who were a certain way, and then you didn't know if they were being authentic towards you. So I had a really hard time connecting with people. And I always was fascinated by the subject of identity, who are we? Who is every single person? And based on how you see them in the world, that might not be how they are. And then, eventually when I was 11 years old, we moved to Canada. And I was always a creative person, so always, a excelled in fine arts, and I just knew that I was going to go and be a creative person. And when I decided to go to design school, I naturally just went towards branding. I don't know what it was, but I don't know, I loved this notion of designing the corporate identity of a company. So now it wasn't for people, but it was for a company, you know, like a group of people. That was really fascinating for me. And so, yeah, I studied at Parsons School of Design in New York City, and then I studied it in Paris. So I studied it in different cultures, in different modalities, and they were each used for different purposes based on clients. And even today, I'm fascinated by it. You know, I moved back to Canada, 10 years ago, having traveled so much, and then started my company, Go with Telugu. And I just knew that I was going to do branding. I wasn't going to try and do SEO or programming or this or that. I was the branding girl, you know. And the more you do it, the more you learn, the more you excel, the more you help other clients be superstars, because they get to be really clear on who they are. Isn't that cool though? You know, like a client or a company or an individual, an entrepreneur comes to you, and usually they come to me and say, you know, my website sucks. The website seems to be the pain point for everybody.
That's the first thing.
Yeah, it's like the conversation starter. Or, you know, like you, I have an event and I don't know where to start. Like, I need like the whole thing. But usually if companies have existed in the past, the first pain point is either I hate my website, our website is not doing what it's supposed to do, or people are confused by our message. We're not saying what we're supposed to be saying, and people are not connecting to us the way they should be connecting. And then when you go back to it, it's all because they haven't really dealt with the identity of their company or themselves. If they're an entrepreneur, they're selling themselves, so it's personal branding. They haven't done that quite well yet.
Okay, so for the benefit of the audience who may not understand, because I think based on my own clients, I just see that there's a lot of confusion in really being clear on what branding really means. Is it marketing? Is it non-marketing? Like, I understand what it is, but can you go a little deeper in really explaining what is the difference? I understand that branding is part of marketing, right? But can you be more specific and explain what exactly, like you said, the people start by coming to you and saying, my website sucks. Yeah. They don't really know why it sucks. What is it that needs to be changed? So, and you talked about, you know, creating that identity. Can you explain what that means exactly?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I get asked that quite often, because branding is a word or a term that gets thrown out around quite a lot. And not a lot of people know what it actually means.
Yeah, people think it's like a logo,
yeah,
or the,
they directly go
like your
to
website
the
design.
Yeah,
right.
The tangible, right?
Right.
And that's not what it is at all. Jeff Bezos has a great quote that I like using. He says that branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So I love this quote, because what it says is that your branding begins when you're not there. So what does that mean exactly? Branding is not your logo, your website, your business card, or any of these marketing collaterals that you use. It's not that. Marketing used to be about people wanting to buy what you had to offer, like your services, your products. It went from the company to the consumer. Now, in today's terms, it goes from the consumer to the company, meaning that it's the consumers who are determining what your brand is all about. Branding is essentially the heart and soul of who you are. What happens in regards to your logo and website and all that, those are just translations of who you are. But branding is the soul of your company. If you don't have a solid brand that people can feel, then essentially your company is soulless. It's kind of interesting to say it that way, because it's like, what does that mean? How does that work? But there are certain methodological, steps to creating what that, the persona of the brand is, so that, when it starts to walk and talk and all that, it has its own identity. That becomes the brand. I have this other way of saying it, and that is that a brand is the image in your head and the feeling in your heart. So whatever image you put in people's head and whatever feeling you put in their heart, that essentially becomes your brand. So you have to be very careful of not confusing people. A lot of businesses or entrepreneurs, they do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and to the audience, it becomes confusing because there's no consistency. But once you're very clear about this is what I want them to imagine about me, every time they see my logo, every time they go on my website, every time they walk into my clinic or whatever it is, this is the image I want them to have of me. And then this is the feeling that I want them to have of me or my company. Then all of your messaging, all of your advertising, your website, all of that stuff has to be directed to those two things, image and emotion.
So can you give one or two examples of companies that have really, they're really good at their branding, like companies that most people are familiar with, and an example of personal branding of famous people that have that down packed?
Sure, yeah. So the best example is Apple. I mean, I use Apple all the time because everybody knows it, and they do such a good job. What is the image of Apple that you think about?
Simplicity.
That's right.
Streamlined.
Streamlined, white.
Clean.
Transparency, clean. So everything that they do, you think of those words, right? Like 3, 4, 5 words. Mm-hmm. And I bet you if we asked 20 people, 50 people, on average, we would probably get those words, right? So they've got their image down packed. What about emotions? How do you feel when you think about Apple?
Safety, as far as security, no viruses in my, because I use Apple
yes.
devices.
Yeah.
That's what I think of. I think of a strong, solid system.
When I think about Apple, I think about innovation. You know, like I feel like they're always out there innovating new things.
That too.
Right? Yeah, so I align myself with that. I feel like there's a lot of creative people who work there, but they're not, you know, like hippie, crazy creatives. They always streamline it back to functionality. So they have this really great balance of creativity and functionality so that it gets to be used simply by anybody. So those are the emotions, mm-hmm. right? And then we can go through so many different companies, right? You think about Nike. You think, okay, what are the first 3 images that pop in your head? Then that company has it down, right? And then you think about 3 emotions about Nike, right? You think about somebody running on the street. So it's like, oh, yes, I can do this. It feels like it's a challenge, but you can conquer it, right? Those are the feelings that Nike would give me. Now, these are company brands, right? These companies are selling the company. Now, what happens if an entrepreneur is selling himself or herself? It's the same thing. Think about Tony Robbins, right? Tony Robbins, first 3 images, what are they? Power position, right? Energy, right? He's always like, let's go. And then an image like, it's like he's in your face. He's just going to give it to you. No matter what it is or how hard it is, no he's just going to go in there. It's going to fix it, right? Power. And the feelings are, people might have various feelings about Tony Robbins. Some love him to death, and others really can't stand him because they think he's too rah. But it doesn't matter because
exactly that brings exactly the point. Because when you have your brand, it's being aligned with who you are and who you want to represent. That doesn't mean you have to that you're necessarily trying to get everybody to like you.
Exactly.
Right. It's about being true to who you are or what your company is. Right.
Yeah. And getting your audience or whoever it is that you want to work with to align themselves to you. Nobody wants to work with everybody under the sun, right? It's just too much. If you really think about it in your business, you might need 10 clients out of the year, 20 clients, maybe 100 clients in the year? That's not 4 billion, right? So it's really important to align your business to who you are. That is your brand, you're creating your brand, and then that will automatically attract, like a magnet, your ideal clients to you.
Going back to Azadeh.
Yes.
What's been one of your biggest challenges in business?
You know, because I was always a creative person, the business side has been a challenge. It was a challenge right from the get-go. I didn't know how to create proposals. I didn't know how to show my value. And I would say, so this October, I'll be in business for 9 years. I would say probably after the first 3 years in business, I just dropped all of the creative learning and I went straight to like the weaknesses, right? So business and accounting and really thinking like a business owner versus I just, get up in the morning and I go sit at my desk and I just do stuff. It was a huge shift when I started thinking like a business owner. And
in what way?
well, because then there was responsibility. I had teammates and I was responsible for them. And then, thinking about the vision of the company, like where is this going? What am I building? Even sometimes you might think of legacy. I mean, those first few years, in business, you might not get there. You're just thinking survival. But later on, you think, okay, I've come so far. What am I going to leave behind? Who do I want to be known for? But the business has to run. If the business doesn't run, and if you don't know who you are and what you're putting out there, it all comes crashing down really quickly. And it becomes too stressful, I remember the first 3 years in business, I wanted to quit like 3 times a month. I was just like, this is enough.
It was
I've
overwhelming?
Had it. It's too much. Yeah, it was too much, and I just didn't know enough. So I guess maybe a tip I could have for entrepreneurs is figure out your weakness and go get help. Like as soon as possible. If you wait too long, it might be too late.
So at what point would you suggest, because when an entrepreneur starts, let's just assume somebody in the audience is considering starting a business or they're just starting, and like you said, at first it's so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. What would you say, because there's so many moving components that at first when you're starting a business, it is a do-it-yourself kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Most people don't have the financial means to outsource everything. At what stage would you say would be a good point to get the whole branding? Like how important at what stage mm-hmm. is the branding supposed to happen to get that nice and solid before it happens by default, which may not be conveying the right message?
Yes.
Right? Because that happens too, where people say, yeah, but I am who I am, and I feel I'm genuine, I feel I'm authentic, I feel like I'm, so why can't people see that? Mm-hmm. Right? So at what stage would you recommend to really get serious about the branding aspect? Obviously not when they're just registering the business, but at what point?
Yeah. That's another great question. I would say that your branding is one of the first things that you have to do, because the trouble is, and I've seen this happen many, many times, especially in networking events, is that entrepreneurs who are just starting out, they show up, and first impressions are lasting impressions. It is very, very difficult to change people's impressions of you once they've had it for the very first time. So what happens is these entrepreneurs come, they don't have their elevator pitch down, they are not clear on what they're really, really doing and how they're serving their ideal clients. They hand out their business card and it looks like it was done at Staples.
With the little grooves around it that they just did themselves.
Yeah, or like cut themselves, exactly.
I have to confess, I did do that when I very, very first, when I first started years and years ago.
There you go.
That is what I did. Because, you know what? Because that is all in my mind.
Yeah.
It was not the number one priority. I did not get it. I did understand the importance of the first impression because, my background was in image consulting, so I understood that, but I focused it so much on my personal presence versus the actual collateral part.
That's right.
If you saw, actually, I think one day I will show you. One day maybe I'll show it to them. If you saw the first posters I ever created for when I started the dance studio, you'd be rolling on the floor laughing so hard. And I could not understand. For the life of me, I could not understand why I was not getting the response out of those posters.
And especially someone like you.
I had all the information there. I thought it was a clean design, but instead of having a strong image, I had one of those bean cartoons,
Yeah.
dancing, and that was not aligned with what
No.
I was offering, right? But here it was a do-it-yourself. I thought I knew better, and then eventually I realized I had to hire a graphic artist to do my first poster, and then I learned about it because once I saw what she did, it was like, oh, I get it. Now I get it. I totally got and understood what the components were to align with, with the company. So yes, the little business cards with the little perforated buttons. Stay away from those, please, please. It does not make you look good. People are not going to want to pay for that.
No,
It takes credibility away from the seriousness of the professionalism that you bring to your business.
That's right. And then, you know, you start talking to them and you say, you know, I've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years or whatever. They look at the stuff that's in their hand, they don't believe you. Those could be words coming out of your mouth, but they look at the evidence that they see, especially if you don't even dress well, you know, like maybe that could be another thing you could talk about. But when you don't have the whole package together and you go out into the business world, people, you know how they say, don't judge a book by its cover? You know, people say that, but really they do it anyways. And so they do that with entrepreneurs as well. When you show up, you will get judged. And it's the same thing with your brand, right?
It takes 5 seconds.
Yeah.
5 seconds for people to make an opinion of you.
That's right. The rule of thumb is somewhere between 4 to 7 seconds. You have 4 to 7 seconds to create an emotional connection or a response from people. Those are very expensive 4 to 7 seconds because you could either bomb it or you show up and people go, oh, you know, who's this person? I want to go talk to this person, you know? And they take you seriously, and then you invite them, you know, for a coffee or for a consultation, for a chat, and they take you seriously. And then there's the other thing of online presence. Nowadays, if you don't exist online, you just don't exist at all, period. So if you think, you know, you come up with all your excuses, I'm getting my website together, it'll be next week, you know. If people don't see it, they will not believe it. So if you want to show up in the world and you want people to take you seriously and pay you very good money for it, you got to have your package, your entire package ready to go. And it has to be excellent, like nothing below excellence. Because there are, like, look at the world of business today. There are so many choices. If you want to work with excellent people and you want to charge good money for it, you have to step up your game and you have to be excellent yourself. If you want to work with people who are not excellent, then don't do excellent because those are the people that you're going to attract. Like attracts like.
You're amazing.
It's really actually quite simple. And, you know, if entrepreneurs really thought about this before getting started, you know, if they didn't start spending all of their money at the beginning doing all sorts of marketing stuff, you know, like, you know, I have a website and I have to spend all this stuff on SEO. I got to go and like do some ads in this magazine, or just by looking at what other people are doing and copying what others are doing. That doesn't work.
Branding before you start marketing.
Branding before anything, because that also gets you clear on who you are and who you want to attract. If you don't have that in place, everything else is kind of like fluff, or you're wasting your time. It's going to take a longer time to get the right people in the door. It's going to cost you money, and it's just going to be difficult. And at the very beginning, a lot of people get discouraged very quickly. So, you know, do yourself a favor. You know, put aside $5,000, $10,000, whatever it means to you. You can go on Fiverr and get people to, you know, trade or whatnot. But think about it and do it. Do something that is better than what you thought was possible. Because when you do it with a professional, even if they're a junior, they will be better than you. They'll do a better job. And then you're ready to go out into the world and meet people and deliver the right message and have the right package and start your business.
Great advice. I wish I knew you when I started the studio, right? Way back. So, if people want to get in touch with you, where do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they can go directly on my website, gogotelugo.com, or azadeh@gogotelugo.com. I'm also on Facebook. You can add me, Azadeh Yaraghi, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. My handle is gogoaz. So the idea was that all of the, you know, collaborators would use like gogo and then, you know, the first, whatever it was of their first name. So on Twitter, it's gogoaz, AZ.
Go. Now, you are a book author. You're a bestseller.
Right,
You have a
that
bestseller.
happened last year.
Can you show
Yes,
us your book?
yes. I brought the book, who, by the way, features this beautiful lady inside.
So you must buy it just because I'm in it. Forget everything else. It's all about me.
Right. So I'm not sure if you can actually see it. I feel like there's a glare, but let's see. We can. Maybe you hold it.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So the title is "Simple Success Strategies for Women Entrepreneurs." This was written in collaboration with 10 other women. So we were 11 women altogether. We wrote, each of us wrote a chapter on different parts of what business owners or entrepreneurs should know about. There's a chapter on niching, so creating a niche. Like we were saying, not going after everybody under the sun, but really identifying who are your best and ideal clients. So Carrie Vega talks about that in a chapter. There's a chapter about video and the importance of video, especially today in marketing, which is like one of the best marketing dollars you could ever spend is on video. Corinne talks about blogging. Then there's like the power of mind, positive thinking. So there are 11 chapters that talk about anything you really need to know about growing your business. And then my chapter obviously is about branding, the 7 most powerful things that you need to know in order to create a powerful brand. And so Francesca speaks about one of the points, which is emotional connection. And I put you in that point because when we did the branding for Magnificent You, I remember that was a challenging thing for you to think, well, what is emotional connection? Like, how am I, or how do I want to connect with my clients emotionally? What does that even mean? And then how do we do it? How do we express it? So it was really great once we actually went through the journey and you got so excited, and then I actually saw you.
Process. It was a fun process too. It was not only fun, it was enlightening. I have to say, and it was not just on a business level, but on a personal level, because it made me think in a whole new way. It's almost like it opened. It's like I never even thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So it's so valuable. I feel that even if you don't have a business, even if you don't have a company, even if you don't even plan to have, to be your own boss, I think it's a nice thing that everybody should do because of
Right.
the whole process of what we went through. Yes, we won't share that because we just want people to come to you and they'll do that process with you. But I had to say, I found it absolutely enlightening. It was, it was very valuable. It was very, very valuable.
Yeah. You know, I created this workshop because that's exactly what I wanted to hear, because I felt that as a designer, if you have a client that comes to you and, and they want a logo design, a website design, all of those things from, beginning from scratch, they don't know where to start, so they're looking to you. And then if the designer just like has a half an hour conversation and then they go directly into logo design, there's so much that gets missed, so much. And so I started creating this this workshop that began by being 3 hours, right, one-on-one. And then now, and this is the other thing I want to share with you, is that in the last 2 years, it is now that 3 hours is now 3 days. But 3 days with more corporate clients when they have teams and they actually bring the team and the staff. Wow. We go through some breakthroughs. And like you said, they start thinking about their brand and their company and how they run things. And even just like when they pick up the phone and answer the phone, or when they're writing an email, like everything that they do is an extension of their brand. Nothing is taken for granted anymore. And so when the owners understand that, when the staff understands that, and everybody globally starts to think the same language, wow, things really start to change in a company. And it's all stemming from branding. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, it's incredible. So are you still doing the one-on-one, or are you only now focusing on the corporate?
So in the last 2 years, we've been doing a great deal of training with bigger companies who have a minimum of 20 staff or more. 20, usually between 20 to about 150 in staff. And so we've gone in there because, again, the pain points usually are, We don't like our website.
It always
Right, it's the
starts on the
tangible.
website.
It's like it doesn't represent us. We're like, we have branding shame. A lot of them say we don't want to send anybody there. And people don't understand what we do anymore, or we've grown over the years, and the brand and the messaging and the website has not grown with us. And so what can we do? And once we start going in there, we go, okay, so let's start the conversation. Are the values still the same? Do you know what your mission is in the company? Why do you do what you do? Does your staff know? What is the vision of the company? What are you building for the next 10, 20, 40 years? Do you know, the owner, co-owners, the managers, all of those people, are they on the same page? Usually, just going over these three things, values, mission, vision, takes about 1 to 2 days just to do those with like big corporate people. And so, yeah, so nowadays we're doing more of those corporate trainings with the corporate. Some of the one-on-one still is going on, but there has to be, I'm no longer doing just the one-on-one and then we leave it and they go and figure out what to do next. And that is because I found that not necessarily all designers know how to roll these things into tangible visual translations. So for example, when we go through archetypes and you choose your triangle and you say this is my top archetype and these are the 2 supporting archetypes, you give that to another designer who has no background in this. They don't know what to do with it, right? So you say I'm the protector, the emperor, and whatever the third one is, and a designer might look at it and go, that's nice.
What does that mean?
What does that mean in terms
of... you have your own system of determining.
Yeah, that's right. Because I created it, because it's like a step-by-step, process, maybe this is something I'll do in the future, is actually create some sort of school where I'm teaching designers about the process of branding. Instead of go from a chat to a logo, what happens in this middle? There's a whole lot of stuff that happens in this middle, and if you miss it, wow, you've missed quite a lot. And going through this process, because I noticed this is a pain point from a designer, that when you go from a conversation to the logo, oh my God, and you show these logos to the client, there's so much like, I don't like this, it's not good. I don't like that, that's not good. I like pink. Why aren't you showing me anything in pink? And you go, what? Like, you talked to me about this and this and that, I can't use pink? But you didn't take the time to go through this process so that they understand what you're showing them. When you go through this process, you go through colors and typography and imagery and the archetypes and the values. And so all along the way, they're following you and they're saying yes, 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 yes. And you're choosing things together. You're not just doing it, from back here. You're doing it together. And so once they start seeing the visual language and the creatives, they're saying yes right away. And so what does that do? Is that it actually gets things done faster from a designer point of view. And anybody who has like a marketing agency or an ad agency or a design agency, if you get your staff to go through the stuff before they show creatives, wow, your clients are going to be signing things off so much faster. But this could be a project for the future. I don't know, a design university, design school.
So you just touched on a couple of things that I just kind of want to expand a tiny bit, because you talk about the color and the fonts.
Sure.
And we've had this conversation before, obviously, because of what we've done. But something that, as a reminder, that colors as well as fonts, the fonts was the one that actually I had not thought of, but colors I knew because of I knew certain colors have different subliminal or psychological messages that they communicate. But I never thought of it as you brought up fonts when we were doing the whole thing, and it's like I never thought of a font other than, yes, you have your flowery bridal type fonts and, calligraphy for certain things that make it's just obvious. But I never really thought of so many subliminal messages or psychological, whatever you want to call them, the influence that certain fonts could have just by the slight different look, even though it may be in the same family, how one communicates something versus something else. That blew me away. And that's why I've said to him, I'm going to put you on the spot here in this interview. I would love to see you teach a workshop on that or do something around fonts, because I think it'd be fascinating. I think most of us don't think of fonts that way. Like, I remember you talking about a little G and you got all excited about showing me the letter G. And I'm like, I've never seen anybody excited with the letter G.
Or Qs. Sometimes Qs are such beautiful figures. Okay, don't get me started.
So, but that's the artistry of it
Yes.
too, right?
Yes.
So I would just love, I think it's a whole fascinating other topic. But
yes, typography, one was, for me, that was a fascinating course in university, like actually going through it. And it might be because also I am Persian to begin with, so we have a whole other, language and a writing style. It goes from right to left instead of left to right, and it's cursive and it's different. And then learning the Roman language, and then going to design school and finding out that yes, fonts have different personalities too, just like different people and just like different businesses. So not every single business should be using this different font because that business has a different personality than another business. So what does that mean exactly? Typographers design fonts. And anytime they sit down to design these fonts, and this is like after reading a lot of their books and bios and things like that, they are pouring a type of personality into this font. So they're thinking, do I want this next font to be like a serious guy sitting there reading the newspaper and, he has a really good relationship with his mom and just doesn't really like the dad and, has really cool friends, but maybe he drinks too much. All of that goes in a font, And so it's really interesting. Once you start to look at these fonts from a very different perspective, and it's not like one is a sans serif, one is a serif, one is a script, and one is deco, that you think they're that diverse. But if you were to take like 10 sans serif fonts, and you start looking at the way the lowercase is designed, and then the uppercase is designed, the way the numbers are designed, or all the stylized symbols are designed. Look at how an Arial looks, an Avenir looks, a Gill looks, and something else. And they're all very different. Some of them are more technical. They're just, meant to say what they say without any bling bling around them. Others are a little bit more round. They feel more friendly. Other ones feel a bit more feminine. There's a sensuality to them. And other ones feel maybe a little bit more kid-like and simplistic,
See,
and
you can do a whole workshop on this. I said you could.
So,
and that goes with the branding.
Yeah.
That all goes with that communication. It ties back.
It ties back. And it can't be the first thing you pick. You got to go through, the steps.
I remember we went through all this.
Yeah. And then at a point, you know which font is yours. Because if I ask you first, what font do you think is going to match Magnificent You? You'll be like, oh my God, I don't know. But if you start with your values first, then you know the big picture. So you always start with big picture first, and then you hone in on the details. Then it becomes really exciting. I don't know. I love running these workshops every time because I'm like, ooh, I wonder what this person's going to say.
Okay, let's go back to Azadeh.
Sure.
So I know you shared your story about how it was like growing up in Iran and having the, kind of two personas and all that.
Mm-hmm.
In the midst of all that, was there something as a child that you wish you could be when you grew up?
Oof. Yes. So I remember that being in Iran was very tough for me. I didn't really feel like I fit in. I had a really hard time making friends. I was usually always by myself. And even when I look at pictures of myself as a child, I look like I was dead in the eyes. Like there's like zero emotions. Even though I have a lovely family, loving, and they're like all sweethearts. I really grew up with love in the house. But internally, I think I was pretty dead in that society. As soon as we moved to Vancouver, I still remember, I was 11 years old, but I remember that I felt that I was reborn. Like this was a different life, like that Azadeh just died and this new Azadeh was born. And I couldn't stop smiling. I was going around saying hi to, and I didn't speak English. But I was like, bonjour, because we went to elementary school in Iran. We went to elementary school that was all French. So I spoke French, and that's why I was enrolled in French immersion. So I speak French with everybody, and I was always laughing and smiling and just so happy to be in this environment. And I remember that I took a vow with myself that I was going to do something important with my life. I didn't know exactly what that was going to be. I knew that I wasn't going to be a doctor or an engineer or anything like that, that I was a creative person, that I was going to do something important via creativity, that I was going to give back to community, I was going to give back to society and make this world a better place to be. Because no child should be raised under bombs, under threats, not knowing if they were going to make it to the next day, not having enough food to eat. No child should go through that. And so I felt like I was privileged to be surrounded by abundance all of a sudden now in Vancouver. And so that is the vow I took with myself. I didn't know that, I want to be like Walt Disney, I didn't have that, but I just knew that I wanted to make my mark in this world somehow. So any time in my life where I felt like I was taking it a little bit easy, or I just became an employee and I just went to like a 9-to-5 job, something in me would stir up and say, Azadeh, you're not on your path. You got to get away from this. And then so, it would take a while, but then eventually I would quit and, start anew until the voice just kind of felt a bit, more balanced and happy that I was on the right track.
So what's next? What's coming up next? Azadeh, what's the big vision? What's happening?
What I would love? It goes back to this whole desire of bringing impact in the world. I find that when I work with corporate companies, and I'm not talking about Coca-Cola and the big ones, I'm talking about companies that are making a difference in this world. They're out there, they're working every day, they're working really hard, and they just need a little bit of help to get their message out there. I really want to help those people and their teams. And so what my team and I will be doing for the next rollout into the new year is that we're going to be concentrating on creating these workshops, seminars, etc., for teams that are somewhere between 20 to 100 people, and going into the company and really stripping out and understanding why is it that your company is not doing that well. Because at the end of the day, business owners will invest in branding because they want to grow their company. You do not, by the way, do not invest in branding because you want something pretty. It'll be kind of a waste of your time because the process is a long process, it costs money, and at the end of it, you'll go, but I just wanted a nice business card. So, you can just go to the design person to do that. And I'm really, really excited about this next journey because I feel that, I've done really great things with small business, but I know that my genius is when there's more complexity on the table, when there's teams, and possibly they're even international, just because I come from such an international background that I understand, you don't do business the same way in Canada as you do in France, in England, in Italy, in Iran. Oh my God. So, and a lot of business owners don't know that until they go and seek out that consultant who knows just that, but then they don't know branding and they don't know marketing. So I find that I bring this unique thing to the table, and I'm just really excited to meet those business owners and companies that are looking for someone like that to, grow their company to the next level.
It's going to be exciting to watch this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
It's been awesome.
I love you.
Getting to know you.
Yes.
Oh, I love you too.